This is the Door Knocker Podcast, where we dive into the explosive growth of the sales industry. We take an in-depth look with the industry's top talent to uncover what has made them successful as salespeople, leaders, and entrepreneurs. We believe all of life's opportunities are just behind the next door. With that being said, opportunities knocking. I'm your host, Zach Ross.
My whole thing was like, I want all excuses out the door. I want this to, if I fail, it's because I tried as hard as I could. I did everything I could and I failed. And so, that was part of my mentality in weightlifting. It's the same way in door to door, where, I did take HGH and I did take steroids as I weightlifted and I got caught. So in 2012, I got caught and I got banned for 2 years. And then I served that sentence and it changed my life, because if I didn't get banned, I probably would have never been a door-to-door salesman. So that break in weightlifting actually gave me an opportunity where, to be introduced to door-to-door. And so 2013, I got into, I was with Vivint, and that was my first summer. Got recruited, did the whole summer program, and it was, the rest is history on my door-to-door stuff, because it was very similar to weightlifting. Like after my first week in door-to-door, I was like, yeah, if I have to work again, this is the only thing I'm going to do. Right. It was really simple. But I did try to train again for the 2016 games, and that was even better. So I dropped weight classes. I switched countries, and all this stuff is like super political, and there's all this paperwork, and I was kind of figuring it all out all on my own and figured out how to get to do that. So I represented Brazil, went to the world championships. I was a top 10 in the world in 2014 in Kazakhstan. And then I got to represent the Pan Am Games again. So I got to do that. And basically, if you guys have followed sports like John Jones or any weightlifting thing like the Sochi games and all the steroid stuff, like coming from someone with a firsthand perspective, like basically what happened was they developed this new test that allows, like why John Jones keeps testing positive, like for the same drug, that drug and another drug, they just can test back years, even if the person doesn't take it. And what it is drug testing allows them to control who wins and who loses, and gives power to people through corruption. And so I feel like that's why this test is developed. And that's what happened to me in 2015. I tested positive again, and that's when I stopped weightlifting. But it was, really, it was the same thing. It was just this test that tested back something that I took 10 months ago or a year ago. It wasn't anything I was expecting. And that was sad too. The biggest thing was I decided I was going to compete clean just because I was still strong. I could still compete on this side of the world. And I felt like I can have a long career, and it was something I wanted to do. But again, anytime I've had these massive setbacks, I've only just made it something to kind of push me forward. And so the second testing positive, that one kind of ended my weightlifting career. And so I just got full into door-to-door.
Well, I take in, dude. And I appreciate you being completely transparent with all that stuff too. Cause and it's funny you bring up John Jones. He just hired, you're talking about the UFC fighter, right?
Yeah.
He just hired Stan Efferding to be his weightlifting coach and nutritionist. And I met Stan a few, not a year, but almost a year back at he was during COVID, he did a little seminar thing about vertical diet at my buddy's gym. And I just got completely obsessed, cause I had I'm not like you, I wasn't athletic, at all. My dad used to say when I played baseball, it's pathetic to watch because it looked like I had lead in my feet. But as I've gotten older, I've gone to the gym, whatever. And this last year, I was well, this powerlifting thing looks super dope, And then you just, people I don't think people get it, right? I didn't. I'll speak for myself at least. Oh, hey, I want to deadlift 500 pounds. Okay, we'll start with 315, right? Oh, I want to squat 405. We'll start with 225. I want to bench 315. Well, let's start with 135. And then like you realize like, you know, like, oh, I'm in 6 months, I'm going to do this. And then, and like, everyone's like, whoa. And I'm 30 at the time. They're like, whoa, bro, like it's going to take you a lot longer to go from this to that. And the dedication that you're going to have to do and what you're going to have to put your body through. So yeah, I really respect that, you know, cause I remember, like we talked about a little before we came on here, you know, Lee was telling me about you and then my powerlifting coach was telling me about you just in passing in 2 separate occasions about, you know, Buff Pat, you know. Which high school did you go to?
I went to Del Sol.
You went to Del Sol. Yeah, we were trying to figure that out yesterday because I was like, we were training yesterday. I was like, yo, I'm going to interview him tomorrow. I'm pumped. He was like, yeah, he couldn't remember because he said you played a lot of high school was a lot of football for you, right? Like, I mean, like you were like, it was a whole lot of, and then you just kind of had to make that decision. So when did you start like the 600 pound squat a day thing? You know, are you still doing that? How long did that last? You know, what was up with that?
Since you brought up Stan Efferting, I want to go back to that real quick. I actually knocked on his door.
Shut the hell up.
Yep. So I knocked on his door and he actually gave me because he knew who I was because of all the weightlifting clout. And he's an awesome guy. Like he's fucking super smart. And he like he'd say that he would watch my squat videos to motivate him, like my 800 pound squat. He would watch that to motivate him. So he's been kind of like a little mentor. We've got to meet up a few different times and kind of talk shop because we have a similar background with our moms and things like that. So he's a super cool guy. And yeah, John Jones is lucky to have him in his corner because that guy is a genius.
Right. No doubt.
But it's crazy who you beat on the doors. Like when I knocked out his door, it was hilarious. It was really funny to kind of just, yeah, by accident. Yeah, completely random.
Hold on, I got to interrupt now. So you were out, and we'll get to your knocking story, but you were out knocking just in hood like you do. Mm-hmm. Lee says you do. It's pretty impressive. And so, you know, you're out knocking in hood. You knock on his door, and he goes, "Oh, you're Pat Mendes." When he answers the door, is that how that worked?
Yep.
That's tight. I don't need any more explanation. So what?
Yeah, we knew each other, so I knew who he was. He knew who I was because like I'm in that world. So
yeah. So why the 600 pounds a day?
Yeah, great question. So basically it was during a time that was when that was right after my second band. And really, you know, I think it's just my way of dealing, like in hindsight, it was like my way of dealing with like just depression and dealing with just kind of just uncertainty as well. So, and it just kind of ended up being a thing where, you know, I kept going. And there was also another part of it too, is squat every day, like was starting to blow up. And so I was trying to like get on that like trending viral thing too as well. So I had a supplement company and that kept me a little bit relevant there. Yeah. But really what it came down to was just the uncertainty and kind of like the depression of just, it gave me something that I can control. And it really just put me in this mindset. Like when you do streaks, it's pretty crazy how like it lines up everything else in your life. So, you know, these are just the things I've learned from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went 192 days in a row, squatting 600 pounds or more. It's over 6 months. And the only reason why I stopped was because of Jerry Seinfeld.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah. So basically during that period, I went from, and this is really cool too, for like, you know, to let you guys, like what was really cool was that 6 month period is actually where I started my door-to-door career again.
Yeah.
And I went from like one guy in a market that, you know, supposedly was really hard and no one sold there. Like I was in Las Vegas, like Vivint didn't have a summer there for 8 years and I was by myself. And then I just slowly started picking it up, figuring out the market, added one guy, added another guy. And like that 6 month period, like went from me to like Lee was there, Justin, like we had all these huge killers that are still in the industry this day. And we built like the team in Vegas, which was like at the time, like the #1 year-round team.
Wow.
And that 6 month period, like, I mean, that year I sold 350 in alarms too. So it just catapulted my,
Just said
you
that
know,
passively too. Keep going.
yeah, it really catapulted me and kept my head straight. So, I don't know how far you want to get ahead, but I repeated the 600-pound thing during Corona.
Yeah.
So, you know, Corona, when that happened, that was the same thing. Like everyone thought everyone was going to die, and like they were shutting down states, and like we couldn't work. And I was like, dude, I just got like a brand new Q8, and I like, you know, like I wasn't thinking like money was going to go down anytime soon. But then I was like, oh shoot, this, that, and the other. And so I was like, fuck it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna squat 600 pounds every day again, because because I can control that. And you know, in my head, I was like, you know what? If I could squat 600 pounds, like, there's no way I'm gonna get sick. Or if I'm sick, like, you know, like I'm gonna be able to know
Yeah.
what's happening with me. So it gives me like a daily gauge of like how I feel. And yeah, I've really used that to just kind of deal with uncertainty. It's been amazing. 2020 was like the best year of my life too. So financially, work wise, everything wise, like met my fiance, all that stuff. So
I had a similar experience too during COVID. Like COVID hit, and I had I was working on like doing this little production company for events, and I had a bunch of good clients locked in and potential clients locked in. And then March 1st of last year, like boom, right? I got the call. I lost, you know, like $150,000 worth of business. And, you know, it was like, you know, I was the most passionate about it, et cetera. And it kind of just went by the wayside. And I, you know, I had a friend who owned a gym, just like you said, and touching back on that too. Like I just leaned in, like I started powerlifting. And I think other than like, and my door experience this last year in solar, keeping me kind of afloat and sane like that. Yeah, I can relate. Like that was like, cause they were all saying the same thing. Like, look, dude, if you come here and you know, and you just work out with us, you know, we'll keep the gym open for the homies, and like, just come and lift hard with us, you know? So I can appreciate that. But, you know, and there was a lot of nuggets in there, a lot of stuff, you know, I want to touch on, but let's kind of like take it back a little bit. So, you know, you get banned a second time. So in between your first ban and your second ban, did you knock doors at all or no?
yeah, I had my rookie year at Vivint, and I was the #1 rookie in the company.
Okay.
So
what year was that?
that was 2013.
2013. Okay. So just like Lee, apple doesn't fall far from the trainer, right? So rookie year, how many alarms did you sell that year?
I funded 177. And I just did the summer. I did the 20 weeks.
So if you don't mind, like a lot of people, honestly, we get a lot more than just, I mean, it's kind of surreal, this experience, after we just had Casey Baugh on the podcast last week, that I'm unbelievably grateful with how many. I mean, we had like 250 new downloads of the podcast that week, and a lot of people aren't even on doors. So if you could just explain, you know, kind of like what is 177 funded mean?
Like I actually got paid on them. So I sold 200, and then after cancels and all that stuff, so 177 funded. That's like the number, I guess, that shows up on Insider for Vivint, that like the company goes off of too. So, I mean, that's really the number to me that counts.
Okay. Yeah, me too. You know, that was just a summer you did that?
Yeah.
So how old were you in 2013?
I was 23.
We're the same age. Cool. So, how did you get recruited? Like, you know, kind of like, how'd you fall into Vivint?
So the year before, the guys, Bobby Taylor and John Taylor. So Bobby and we went to high school together. So kind of all the same circle.
Right.
And Bobby's one of my best friends, and he went the summer the year before to work for his brother John. And I just got banned, and I just got scared. So like I started selling cars. Like that was my first sales job. And I never sold anything. I was pale. Like I hate talking to people. Like I didn't really like anything at all. Like I was just like, but my coach was like, hey, you can sell cars and make money if you work hard. I was like, okay, I'll work hard. And like second month, I was salesman of the month. Third month, I was salesman of the month selling cars. Cause all you had to do was stand out there longer than the next guy and you would sell more. Like that was my whole mindset. And cause in Vegas, it's 110 degrees in the summertime. And I'm just out there just hanging out longer than anyone else could, because all these other guys are alcoholics. Yeah. So it was like, they just weren't in shape. Like I was in shape. Like an athlete selling cars is like is gonna win in the Vegas summer
all day.
Yeah. And so after that, it gave me the confidence when they came back to me the next year. I sat down with, it was really when I met Jeff Mendes when I finally made the decision. So I went up to Vivint, got to see what it was all about. I was blown away. Everyone was so young and making so much money. I was like, I referenced it like to the Future Millionaires of America Club. You know, I was just like, dude, this place is legit. And then Jeff Mendes just challenged me. He just said, well, hey, if you think you're a good salesman, like we're the best salesman in the world. So, you'd really get to see what you're made of if you come work for us. And once he said that to me, I was like, that night I went back to the hotel I was staying at and I called John and I said, I'm in. I'm just like, yeah, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to see like how I stack up against, the best salesman in the world for his take. And yeah, I loved it. Like, just, I think with where people struggle with doing anything is they get result oriented and they don't fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
So like for me, like whether it was weightlifting, it didn't really matter what it was. Like I needed to know if I liked it. And man, after that first day, I was just like, I bageled. But my first week I sold 8 and I never sold less than 7 that whole summer. So like, I just never struggled at door to door, especially selling alarms. And mainly because like I worked really consistently. I gave myself these little rules. So like my one rule when I started that summer was I have to knock my last door at 9 p.m. no matter what.
Wow.
Like no matter what. And even if I had 3 sales that day, 5 sales, didn't matter. And even if I was hoping for someone like not to answer the door, I would still knock it. Like I would find a door that looks like no one's home and just knock it at 9 p.m. just to keep my rule and my discipline.
Yeah, bro. Wow.
And I always tricked myself, but I remember like, I was a psychopath knocking doors in the summer. Like I was talking to myself the entire time. Like I think a lot of door-to-door guys do that. Like the ones I know that are good, like they have this self-talk that is just ridiculous. Like I would literally be in the hood, like walking and running. Like I'd run to houses sometimes and I'd just be like, I'm the best. Like no one's better than me. Like I'm the best. Like I would just, I would just be like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, these people are like watching me in this neighborhood walking around. I'm just talking to myself. Like, and it was just this, you have to love, it's weird because as much as I love certainty and I gear towards that just because like my background, how I was raised, it's really like the chaos that is like that hardcore door to door. Like when you're dropped off in a neighborhood and you're just left there for 8 hours to figure it out. Like I love that. Loved that process because it just allowed me to take all these things in and figure out this system that was like, all this information. Cause in 8 hours you're by yourself. No one's telling you what to do. The people you talk to have no idea why you're there. They have no idea what you're supposed to say. Like I took all of that and just like streamlined it into like this like one process. And it was really fun to figure all that out.
Yeah, that's wow. I'm grateful, man. Like for guys like you and John and Bobby and Lee, like I've had both John and Bobby on the podcast, and I came from roofing. I had a little roofing organization in Charleston, South Carolina, and I did super well, dude. And I thought I was an animal, and then Lee hired me last summer because I again, like it was serendipitous, really, dude. Like I had known someone that knew Lee, and he ended up getting. He ended up leaving and I ended up, walking into a position and Lee literally was like, well, pitch me, cause I'm thinking I'm a hot shot and all this shit. And Lee's like, he literally looks at me in front of everyone. He's like, you're really bad. And I was like, oh, okay. Cause I thought I was a beast. And every month he just say, you're really, and then I started getting really good, and like, honestly, I started working hard and like, I got really good and I didn't know, I didn't have that type of work ethic that you had in the beginning. I just didn't. And then Bobby came in. Right. And I went from being a hot shot to a guy who, Bobby's 800 or 1,000 homes he's been in. Right. And like, there's just it's just different, and then, and then Lee starts gratefully. Cause I didn't even, honestly, Pat, I'll tell you the truth, man. I didn't even know who Vivint was until July of last year. Like, I didn't know who the company was. I didn't know anything about them. And part of the reason I started this podcast was because of all the people at Vivint. Lee talked about, John talked about, Bobby talked about. I was like, holy shit, like these guys I need to hear what's going on. I selfishly started this podcast because I just want to talk to you guys. And I just want to, like, cause it's crazy even hearing what you're saying, like, and it's so motivational to me, bro. Like, it's just like, if you want to be like these guys, you just got to do what they do. That's like what you just said. Like, it's not about like knowing any trick. Yeah, sure, you get better at objections. Sure, you get better at but like overall, bro, it's work ethic, dog. Like, that's all this is. And like, even when I had Casey, I had Casey on like a little while ago, and I just started implementing his little tidbits, man. Like, just the goal setting and the Sunday planning. And even I had the best week I've had since I started solar last week. And I'm an experiential guy, and I'm also inherently lazy. And so when I see what I have to do, and that's what powerlifting taught me as well, like, okay, you got to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning. You got to do your goals, and you got to go to work. And then you got to knock these certain hours. And these are the hours I'm knocking, like you just said, whether it's 11 to 9, 12, whatever it is, 11 to 6, it doesn't matter. I'm knocking until that time. And when I start, it's so stupid and it's so simple. But what I see with like you guys, all of you successful door knockers and entrepreneurs, is like, it's just work ethic, bro. That's all this is. It's literally work ethic, And for me, it was kind of like, I got two things at what you just said, right? So like, extreme focus, commit your entire life, give everything you have. And then when things for you, Pat, get harder, you revert to harder things to get you comfort, right? And like, I literally heard guys like you talk about that, like, oh, I'm going to get out the car and I'm the shit. And so literally that's all I do now. Like, I'm like, it's so funny you bring that up, because I've been practicing for the last month, bro. And I didn't even think about it. I'm like, oh, you're a little bitch in the car. Like, I'm talking to myself like this. And then I heard a couple guys talk about, like, Casey's like, oh, I went down, slept on a mattress. And then I got to get this many deals to pay my bills. And, so it's kind of crazy how like all of you guys coming from the same organization, which I feel like is probably the best door knocking organization to ever knock doors out of Vivint or out of any company. And you guys all have the same principles, but even sometimes it seems even before that they, the higher ups would tell you that this is what you should do or suggest it, you guys just did it. You just had, it was almost like it was a thing that needed to happen. So then you go back and, you train for the 2014 Olympics, you represent Brazil, you get banned again. So in between that time, then do you go right back to Vivint in 2015?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I got banned, I had two choices. Like, one, online coaching for like weightlifting, and like my reputation and my gym and like my coach, we had like a pretty decent following. And there was definitely some money to be made there. So I did want to kind of pursue that and stay with it. But once, my coach wasn't really comfortable with the online training stuff, and I didn't really have any other income source, and I didn't have time to waste. So yeah, Vivint was the only thing I saw myself doing. Like, it just made sense. And what was cool is I got to come into a brand new program that was year round, which, like, literally Vivint didn't have a year round program before 2015. They were just doing the summer programs. And so that was really fun to figure out how to do that and how to make it a little bit more of like a sustainable job process, instead of, because I personally don't believe getting dropped off in neighborhoods for 8 hours a day is something you can do year round. I believe it is something you could do when there's an end date, and it's temporary. Or, most guys nowadays, they drive themselves to area. But so I wanted to figure out this year round stuff. And then, yeah, basically I was in Vegas. John Taylor, he was my manager from El Paso, like my first summer. He was in Utah living there. So he just said, hey, go figure it out. And if you do, like, literally that's it. No, there's zero advice. It was, because he knows who I am. And that's how he trained me the first time. So, it's kind of funny. Like, I think some guys, I've actually had this happen a few different times, is like, you have a system, but especially when it's small, you have to kind of like customize it to the rep. Like, Lee was trained different than, you know, a guy who was this way. And like for John, it was, you know, whether like he knew it at that time because he was like a new manager, or whether it was just the way, I think most actually guys are trained like this. Like all I did was I watched him sell one day and that was it. And then we had sales meetings every day. We learned that way too. But I did not do like with Lee. When I trained Lee, it was like, hey buddy, come with me for like 3 days and like I'll show you this and I'll close a sale for you. Cause like, you know, and what's really cool is like that second way works really well for year-round guys. The summer way worked well for like my summer guys. And that's how I train the majority of people now, is the same way I train Lee. Like I will spend as much time as I can with a rep to make sure that they're comfortable, because I'm not just doing this for a summer. And I'm not with someone in the tent that I feel like this guy is going to quit or anything like that, or he's not. Like, we're very selective of, you know, who we recruit. But it was just, once John told me what to do, I was like, all right, cool, I'll figure it out. It took me 3 months, took me like October, November, December. And I was like, okay, cool, I got it. Hired a couple guys. My first recruit ever in the industry is still with me today, living here in Texas. So he, between him and a couple other guys, like we were rolling. And then, basically John said, okay, I'm going to move there. I'm going to bring all like the sales reps and all the people he already had. And so we teamed up, and, you know, through him and just like, then Jeremy and Lee and all these people just came together. We just kind of blew up this market. And now it's crazy because I went to Vegas this year and sold there. And it's, you know, Vivint's a household name. It's like, it is a Vivint market now, which was nuts. Because when I was there and I started, all there was ABT, which was great for me, but it was crazy. Like there was no Vivint there really. And so it was quite the process to get that going.
Yeah. So you started that office here, et cetera. And then how long did you guys run it like out here before you kind of like went your own way?
Yeah. So we went like 2 years strong, and then 2017, I got married, and then decided to move to Philadelphia. And so that's kind of like when I kind of cut ties like with the Vegas team as far as like managing hands-on. And I went to Philadelphia to like pursue this like smart home solar thing that was like just getting started. And I failed miserably. I think that was like the example of like bad partnership. So I went from like, you know, really good partners, ones that kind of all came from the same thread, the same like leadership role, to like I partnered with like a couple other different regions in Vivint. And that's the cool, like very interesting thing about Vivint. Like it really does matter where you go. It is not, generally speaking, it is amazing at the very higher up, but there's just a lot of different sales managers and sales organizations within Vivint. Where it was like funny when I saw these other guys that I've never seen before, I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, what are you guys doing, bro? Like, right. We gotta work. Like, let's go to work. And so yeah, it was a lot of different things that kind of snowballed into it. Like, I got married, bought my house, and paid my first like real tax bill. So I spent like $100,000 in 3 months, and I was like, holy crap. That was a lot. And at the same time too, Vivint's going through their changes, which they always do. That's just the type of company they are, where they like switched over to consumer financing. And, you know, they were switching up a lot of different things, switched the way they paid overrides, and then switched the way they pay out. And I was just basically, for me, I like took the brunt. Like I was just one of those guys who took the brunt of all those changes, because I was so, like, I was getting overrides up front. Like right. That's something that, you know, was very life-changing when that happened. And then when it got taken away, like, you know, it's like, oh, I bought this house, and it's like, oh yeah, we're taking away $10,000 of income up front a month. And I was like, so now I'm like selling more to try to figure that out. And I couldn't even focus on solar, because I was like, dude, I need to make money now. And back then solar was just garbage as far as like the offer, and like, I think just the way people can get it and the way they paid, it didn't really make sense for a guy who can sell a lot of alarms. That's for sure. And then, yeah, I think I made the hardest decision I've made in a while, was like splitting up from Vivint. And then, so that's when in 2018, towards the end of 2017, that's when I left.
Okay. So when all this, did you buy your house in Austin, or did you buy your house here?
I bought my house in Philly.
In Philly. Okay.
Yeah.
So you bought the house in Philly, running games, solar, etc. 2017, you leave Vivint. Where do you go?
I go to Skyline Security. So I go to what you call in the alarm industry, like the dealer world.
Okay.
And so the alarm industry they have like the corporate world, which is like Vivint.
Yeah.
And then they have dealers, which dealers are like basically like just could be a one-man show out of a garage, selling whatever equipment they want to sell. And the monitoring companies like Brinks, ADT, Guardian, they're just buying the contracts at a multiple. They don't care what equipment's in there. They don't care about like what the service is like. And for the dealer, they only care for the first year. So like the first year as a dealer, you're on the hook for that account. After that, like there's no chargebacks, there's no service calls. You don't have to do anything. So I always like, it's very similar to like a car dealer. You're just there. You go to a car dealer. Sometimes this guy got this price. This guy got this price. And it's a very hard, the challenge with the dealer is they attract people because of the pay. You get paid a lot up front, especially.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed. And that's what I was attracted to. And at that time in my life, I was like, bro, like I'm going to die here if I stay. So, and I was selling a lot. Like I was still out selling people at Vivint. Like it wasn't like I was like not working and not selling. I just wasn't making any money. So it's like, it was very frustrating to me.
Wow.
And, it's crazy in those 3 years how much has changed. And it's funny because like the dealer world's now taking the brunt of it. It's taking the hits now financially. And like because the way Vivint sells customers through consumer financing, they're a lot more profitable. And so, now they're actually able to pay more than some of the dealers. And that's how we kind of came back into the whole mix, how Vivint came back into the mix. Because if things were like the same, it just doesn't make sense especially when you're used to getting paid up front. Like that's how all my guys live is, they're used to getting paid 85% up front.
Right.
So yeah, like the dealer world, I worked for Skyline. We sold for Guardian. And before I did that, like I looked at a bunch of different dealers, but Skyline itself was just way ahead of everyone else. Like most dealers, they last like 3 to 5 years. Skyline's been around for 20. They had good operations and payroll, and like they can get the paperwork done for you. And then eventually through like getting volume and pushing, it was able to, I kind of like my goal was to basically take like everything I learned at Vivint and put it towards what I can do in the dealer world.
Right.
So that way the dealer world can have systems like that. Like the dealer world doesn't have any systems like Vivint has. They don't have like apps that you can look up people's information, or like they don't have, like just anything. Like even the payroll, like I had to make my own payroll, as far as like my pay plans, like I was making the pay plans and like how they worked and how people got overrides. And so again, it was like a lot of all this new stuff coming at me, which I loved in the beginning, and it was a lot of fun to like grow and figure it out. But then you get to the point where there's a lot of people depending on you. I think there's like 45 people like in our organization, including our technicians. And so I was like, fuck, I'm going to be the one to answer all these. And I've only been doing this for 5 years. So I'm like, I have to like figure this all out for everyone. And I was kind of getting a little, and then there were pay changes and things happening to the dealer world. So, we ended up talking to Vivint again, and, that's how we kind of ended up back here.
Okay. So 27, you leave, and then you went to Austin. And, how many people were in your organization when you left?
So at Vivint, I don't even know, bro. I just looked at how many accounts we had. I wasn't even paying attention to that stuff. I know we were always the smallest team with the most accounts. Like that's always been our thing. I think we had one year we had 5 guys sell over 1,200 accounts between 5 of us. That was with Lee. That was with me. So like we've always had like just killers on our team. But when I left Vivint, I left just by myself. Like I didn't try to recruit anyone. It's not really my style. Like I'm not really someone that I never left or do these changes with any intentions other than just like, ultimately what I think's best for me. And like this situation, I can't look people in the eye and be like, bro, come over here, bro. Cause I'm like, bro, I'm got equipment in the back of my car. And like, I think I'm buying stolen equipment from one technician, but shit, I'm making a lot of money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that, I can't bullshit people. Like the reality of it was there was a lot of shady shit going on in the beginning of like switching over to the dealer world, because you can do literally whatever you want. Right. Other than like the normal, like the phone calls and the surveys and like setting up people. But I'm just saying equipment wise, like, it's whatever, literally, bro, like you could find equipment in the trash, take it out of the trash, set it up in someone's house, and they don't care.
They don't even know.
Like, you know what I mean? There's no checks and balances for that stuff. There's no wanting, like the rule, like the mindset in the dealer world is, hey, you got this guy, like you have this money for 1 year. Like that's how long you have to like hang on to it. There really isn't a long-term play. Like you're not building a ton of residual or a ton of equity. It's like you get this huge chunk of money. So it's like your goal is to ultimately sell the product for as cheap as possible. So you want to sell the cheapest products that you can. And, long-term, all that does is it creates like attrition like crazy for those companies. And that's why like their pay is going down and they keep losing customers. So it's just a model that doesn't really like it doesn't really align correctly with the customer. And that's the difference with Vivint is like, obviously they make all their own equipment and like, you could only get it through them. You could only set up Vivint equipment. Like I can't go and get a 2 gig panel and put it in someone's house and then Vivint's going to pay me for that. They're like, nah, like we don't do business. Like they actually care. So like, like that's, that was like part of like why I didn't want to bring anyone over. But eventually like my recruiting's always been, I think I do really well and then I get people to do well and that just attracts people. I very rarely like go out and actively recruit. Yeah. And I don't have to with going over to Skyline, I met my co-regional Nico. And so it's great because he filled that whole gap. So my first year at Skyline, though, I still banged out I was #1 rep there. I banged over 300. And then I had 1,000 accounts. I had like 1,100 accounts, I think. So as like a team, and that was just me by myself, like picked up a guy here, picked up a guy here. And then, after that though, like that next year, that's when we really killed it. That's when I had my best year, sales wise is 2000. That was 2018, 2019. I had my best sale. And Nico and I really started like picking it up with the recruiting because he comes from like Herbalife and like just a different background.
Wow.
But never knocked a door before. And so I trained him how to sell. And then eventually I was like, he does the recruiting and like I do this. And so our partnership's been a big reason why I've been able to blow up, and we've been able to really blow up together the last couple of years.
I was actually going to ask about Nico because I see you guys on Instagram, et cetera. I kind of just seen the process. So it's cool that you brought him up. But I really want to get this clear. So you, let me get this straight. So you started your own organization, went to Skyline. Do you still knock today? Have you knocked?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I sold 8 this last week.
Okay. So I just want to, cause like a lot of people, it's funny, like I have friends who, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to, and I'm like, I want to get to this spot and I want to have this many people on my team and I want to do this. I want to make this kind of money so I don't have to go out anymore, and Casey said something on the podcast that kind of blew my mind. It's such a simple thing. He said, stay close to the doors, like that. Mm-hmm. So just so everybody knows that's listening, Pat Mendes still sells 8 alarms a week. So are you so throughout this entire process, as you're recruiting, and I think I can because I talked to Lee about this with recruiting, like, you know, do you like Indeed ads or Craigslist ads or da 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 da? And Lee, in more than one word, Lee literally just said, "You are the conduit. So you are the pipeline to the well. And if you present yourself in a certain manner in your daily life, and you show people what you're actively doing, they will want to find out what's going on." Because for a long time, you know, I think like, oh, like, you know, and Lee really helped me out a lot with it. And, you know, even John Taylor, you know, a couple of conversations with him, it was like, you know, I want to recruit based off of, look, this is the kind of coin you want to make. But at the end of the day, like, you know, Casey calls it a whole person paradigm, and I'm realizing this more and more. People don't want to just make money, man. You know, like humans don't want to, the type of human that I'm going to want in my organization isn't about the money. You know, it's about what kind of person are we going to help you become? And by doing that, like you were just saying, like, you will make this type of money if you do this type of work, right? And you actively look for more work to do. And that's, you know, I've been reading a lot of John Maxwell because suggested by Lee, and, you know, it's just become more of a realization where it's like, I'm trying to build a little small team in the organization as well, and trying to, you know, get that managerial role. And I can't expect these dudes, I can't expect Sam or any of these guys to go pound doors and put up accounts 5 a week or 3 a week or whatever it is a week if they don't see me doing it. Because by me doing, and it's so simple, but you know, I can't speak for everybody, but what I've heard, and myself included, it's like, you know, sometimes I want to take a shortcut, you know? And so, you know, from what I'm gathering for you, even now, like, you know, what are you out 5-6 days a week? I mean, how many days are you working?
Yeah. So 2020 was pretty interesting. It kind of changed the way I work. So basically, we did a lot more traveling last year, and I'm with my fiance, she lives in Brazil. So now basically what I do is I'm here in the United States for like 6 weeks, usually 5 to 6 weeks straight. And I'll knock doors 6 days a week with someone, without someone, doesn't really matter. Like, I just do whatever I have to do. I mean, but even on Sundays, like, I'm still working. Like, I mean, so basically, like, I'm willing to work 7 days a week. So that way I can spend 2 weeks every month, every 2 months, pretty much, like, away. Like, I'll go to Brazil. Like, I've been to Brazil 11 times in the last like 14 months. Going to the Bahamas next month, like, just so I could keep meeting my fiance, because she can't come to the United States. So I'm hoping that will stop. But yeah, I think 5 to 6 days a week is really, 5 days a week is easy. You know, I used to, like, so some days I work 6 though, if I have like the appointments or I need to. I don't even like the work. I don't have a number anymore because I don't have a choice. So it's like, I just do whatever I have to do, based off of like how I can balance my personal life at the same time. So, you know, I still work out every single day. You know, when I'm here, I still meditate. I still, like, you know, have conversations and try to have relationships, but I definitely don't have a ton of hobbies other than traveling. I mean, I'll say that, like, there is no hobbies for me, for now. And I think, you know, like what Casey says, staying close to the doors, like, my raw numbers, like, I've sold 300 accounts 4 years in a row while managing over 1,000 account offices or more. Last year was the first year I didn't sell 300, and I probably won't this year, but that's just because my organization got to the point where it's hard for me to do. But I'm still over 200 every year. They're like, there's no way I'm not going to hit, like, because that, to me, I've become so efficient. So it's like, and I do train a lot of guys. Like, I've probably, like, just this year since January, I've been on the doors of probably 20 reps. Just because I'm training and retraining. And being close to the doors allows me to be relevant. You know, I don't want to be the guy, like one of the other leaders I had, you know, is telling me just to do shit that was done in the 1990s, like get a minivan and drop people off and get some walkie-talkies. I'm like, why would I do that when there's data everywhere that's in apps that tell us everything we need to know about anyone? Like, why on earth would I do that? Why don't I teach someone how to collect data within an app and build their own lead source as they work. And, Lee knows that's how I did it at Vivint. Like, it's just, I just think differently with knocking. And I think you have to, because the things are changing. Like, we just have so much data to go off of, whether it's new homeowner leads, whether it's Redfin, whether, you have Street Genie and you're at Vivint and you have those apps. Like, it just doesn't make sense to just, grind out that thing unless you're using the data and you suck. Then it's like, then it's like, you got to change something. You can't just, like, obviously the easiest way that we try to make it is this way, and you can't figure it out. Well, let's just drop you off in a neighborhood then and see if that change sparks something in your brain to get you to, like, figure this out. Like, because, Definition Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expect different results, and door-to-door guys are the fucking worst at that. Because they get success doing one way of a thing, and they cannot change it. And then they start sucking, and they're like, well, it can't be my way because it worked, and it's got to be my area, and it's got to be, like, it's just harder now. There's more people here. The market's saturated. Like, there's so many excuses that come up. And so, but really it's just, like, not the ability to change with whatever information you're getting, whether your information, like, for me, I don't need to change much of what I do because I always sell and I always produce at a high level. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to change too much what I'm doing. But with, like, if you weren't that way and you are struggling, then it's definitely something you want to, or you're not hitting the goals that you want to hit. You're still good, but you're not great. Then it's like, okay, well, go find out what someone else is doing, or go back to your training and see, like, where you're missing, record yourself pitch. And so I think, like, that's why I like being close to the doors.
Yeah, dude, that's, I had that happen even here, man. Like, my closing ratio was high. I don't know what it was, but it was high. I was doing really well. I was making a lot of money. I was having a lot of fun. And then I just one day, and I'm pretty current with Lee. Like, listen, you're my mentor in this deal. And, like, I'm going to share this shit with you and be a little bitch sometimes, but here it is. And, it's ironic how this whole industry works too, when I'm present. Like, I changed the sales cycle. That was, that works. The damn sales cycle that works. The damn sales cycle that was taught to him, that was taught to you, that was taught to that works. That's why, these door knockers are worth tens of millions of dollars now because it works. And I'm smarter than everybody else, Pat. I know what I'm doing. And I hear, oh, this guy says this and this guy says this, and I'm listening to all this shit and I'm reading all these, and I just start going into this, like, tunnel of voodoo magic bullshit, and all of a sudden I'm my 30% closing ratio, and
yeah.
We're in, we have training twice a week realistically. Like, it's not like we're getting pounded with training. And, he's like, the setters are, but, we're not necessarily. And Lee's in class, like, talking about, like, reinvent the wheel, don't reinvent the wheel. And I'm so arrogant, and I'm like, I'm not doing that shit. It's just the pitch, And what I'm grateful for is guys like you and Lee that are like, you're going to let me sink, motherfucker, and you're going to sink by yourself. And when you're ready for a life raft, we're going to throw one to you. And you're either going to take it or you're not, And he literally had me pitch in front of everybody because he was like, I need to go on the home with you. I need to go on the home with you. And, he came one time, whatever. And then, but homeowner wasn't home. So he has me pitch in front of everybody. And he basically said to me, like, this isn't it. This isn't like, you need to go back to the sales cycle, And I'm like, what do you mean? And I didn't necessarily defend myself. I just said, cool, because I take criticism well. I said, because that's one thing I do well is I'll ask, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, bro. Like, and I need to get back to the top. And my only focus, like what you were talking about, is like, I need to be the best me. I don't care who's in my way, right? And so it's just so funny how I made one change, and 1 degree off on an airplane going to London is going to take you to South Africa, and that's like where my whole trajectory changed of like, oh, I'm doing, and then I go right back to the thing that works. Just keep it simple, stupid. And then I applied that to the doors, which was because I was, like, it's funny you were making fun of reps, and Lee's told me about how the Pat Mendes savage. I've heard a couple of Pat Mendes stories, but and he told me a couple stories. I'm out knocking, and I'm telling him, oh, it's the routes, or oh, it's this, and he goes, no, motherfucker, just work more. Like you're not working enough. And it's funny how the compounding effect of doors affects my life, affects everything around me. Of like, oh, if I just go again, like you said. Maybe I have 3 appointments that day and they're scattered out and I can't get to route, but I'm in hood, so I can just knock hood. Maybe I can get 10 or 15 doors in, but whatever it ends up being. But all of a sudden, instead of taking 25, 30 doors to get a conversation, it takes me 10 or 15. And then and then my accounts are going. And then it's just this crazy momentum of like exactly what you're saying of like, bro, does it really hurt me to go out in my car on a Saturday, drive down to hood, go hang out in hood for 6 or 7 hours? What else would I be doing? I mean, honestly, and it's a rhetorical question. And the way you said it, it honestly like made everything register in my mind, because I've been looking for the words to really how to explain it. Is like, bro, the lifestyle that it's so funny, bro. The lifestyle I've always wanted, what I've always been wanting. I'm like you, man. My girlfriend's the same. Like our hobby is to travel, and the lifestyle, everything I've ever wanted to do is one door away. It's my acres of diamonds. It's literally like, you're going to get better. And Lee would say that you're just going to get better the more doors you knock. Just get more comfortable. Just be yourself. And I went out with him, I think twice. I think twice, maybe 3 times. Because it was funny. We were in the car one day because I finally asked him, I said, I need to see you do it. Right. And he goes, and I get in the car. I was like, well, so how many days you spend with Pat? He's like, well, I only spent 2 or 3 days with Pat. And I said, well, fuck it. I'm not spending more than 3 days with you. You know what I mean? But what I realized, kind of what you're saying, is like the trajectory of my life changes at the door, So I'm grateful for guys like you too, and Lee too, like just, you guys still hit doors. It's just the thing. Like, I'm still going to hit doors. This isn't, and I didn't get into this thing when I was 23. I got into it when I was 31, or 30, right? Like, I don't even count the roofing anymore because it wasn't real. But I want to, so I've seen Nico on your thing, and I saw, the United region and all that stuff. So how did the United region start? And then kind of what was I know you said Nico's kind of like your yin to your yang, but like kind of how did that whole thing start? And then we'll get into kind of where you went with Vivint now.
Yeah. So good question. So with Nico and I really think it was basically what happened was I came over to Skyline, and when I came over, I just said, hey, I sell 300 a year. That's what I'm going to give you. But what happened to me, and what happens when you like have mastered a skill set, like I couldn't not build something. Like it is naturally within me that I have to build something. And, again, that's how I attracted a couple other guys. But then basically Nico and I, we got on a phone call. The owner of Skyline got us together. And I got off the phone and I looked at my ex at the time, my wife at the time, now she's my ex. And I said, this is the guy. This is the guy. Like I didn't need to see him. I was like, if I can get this guy to succeed at this is my partner. Just hearing his background, hearing how he was motivated. And I don't give anyone credit for saying shit, but I just knew, like, I wanted to see him do it. But so we started training, and instead of having him stay somewhere else, I said, hey, you can stay at my house. This complete stranger I never met before. I was like, you're going to stay at my house, live rent free, and we're just going to live together for as long as you feel like it.
Wow.
And run kind of like a summer program outside my house. And so I just took him under my wing. I trained him the same way I was trained, which was interesting. I had him have the pitch down, and then we went ahead and started marking area, went out the first day. And like he always tells people, like he thinks, because like a lot of times when I sell the first person I talk to, because I know exactly what I'm looking for. And with him, it was one of those things where I pointed a house in the car. I'm like, boom, that's the one. And we ended up selling him, got right in, sold him. And he's just blown away. I think we sold, because it's in the middle of like we're just like in the middle, like no one believes that I could do that. Like, and I do it all the time. Like I could sit here right now. I could pull up an app. Like I pull up Street Gene. I could tell you, hey, like between these 3 houses, I'll put some filters on. I'll be like, yeah, one of these are going to be a deal. Because I've been doing that for 5 years. Like I did that with Lee. And it was like, I just know, I'm a really good guesser, whatever it is.
I think you know.
And basically from there, he's like, hey, can I pitch? It was like the end of the day. And here's this random house. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and pitch. And it's like nighttime. And he pitches, doesn't really know anything. Someone's like, but the person was interested, like, what's the price? And I was like, boom, that's exactly why I'm here. I took over. And so he actually sold the first door he pitched himself, which was interesting because we ended up selling that person. And then we just spent that whole 3 months together. So, I mean, we lived, breathed, everything, like, you know, and it was training, like literally training him, like we would walk to the gym and we'd be pitching, role playing, and then we'd walk back and then we'd go hit the doors and we'd drive an hour to area. So we're in the car. So I'd spend like hours and hours with him. And, especially in the beginning until he kind of got it, then he started driving himself to area. And then, you know, he sold 8 his first week. So sales wise, again, like he did really well. And it was like anyone else transitioning to the industry though, like there's definitely a point with new people that are like, am I really going to be a door-to-door salesman? And that was like, you know, like, I don't know. And, you know, I when I recruit people, I just tell them, hey, look, like we're door-to-door salesmen. People don't like us. We're not doctors. Okay. So get that through your head, like when you get into this industry. So that way down the road, you were already set up for the right expectations. Like, I'm sorry, like that's just the way it is.
Wow.
And so it took about 8 months. But what happened was after that summer, he went to California where he's from. I moved to Texas. And then December, it was a pretty cool story. December, he's like struggling trying to manage this little team. And I'm like, well, yeah, bro, because you just started. Like, I knew that. It's not because of his talent. It's not because of his leadership. It's just because he just started. So I was like, look, move to Texas and we're going to build something amazing. Like, I promise you that. And you'll make more money than you've ever made or ever even think you could make.
Right.
And so he's like, all right, cool, I'm moving to Texas. So he moves to Texas. And dude, since I've lived here, me and him combined have probably talked over like the people that on our team, they're like 30 of them moved to Texas. So getting people to move and being in a good market to live in is fun. So from there, he got here and it was like, I still had to rub off and work with him on the, like being a door-to-door person. And finally, like, you know, we had this talk. I was like, look, bro, your thing is going to be recruiting. You just know people more than, I don't even know how fucking you know people. And finally, dude, he makes one Instagram post. Finally, like his first, like, hey, everyone on Instagram, I'm a door-to-door person. And it was a big deal for him because, like, you know, he was a fitness person and trained like the Prince of Dubai. And like, wow, he just like has like this crazy story. So it was a big deal to, you know, to do something like this. And basically once he did that, we had 20 DMs. People wanted to come. We took like 4, I think. We took 4 people, started like our little team. We did 2,000 accounts that year, you know, and then basically just kept that same process. So like for him and me, like it's really social media is our biggest thing. It's like you said, how, you know, you're the conduit and you put that information out there. Well, that's not necessarily just person to person. And it's really not for us. Like the social media stuff is really where we get most of our guys, the Indeeds and those fucking things. Like, dude, I've tried it. And I mean, we have 4 people started next week that just got started. We don't have a single Indeed ad online. We don't have a Craigslist. We don't have this. All of our recruits are organic. And I think that's, you know, I think that's really good to keep your organization close. I think the organic recruits have always seemed to be the best ones. Lee is an organic recruit. I am an organic recruit. And even my first recruit was an organic recruit. It was a friend of a friend. and you still hear. It's just that the organic ones really last, and like the ones that are like out there, man, I get it. Like it's all over the roulette wheel at the end of the day. And at least you're getting bodies in, but I haven't seen a lot of those. I haven't seen anyone. I don't have one Indeed recruit on my team, if that says anything, like at all. And I started with Indeed and Craigslist in Vegas. Like I had 3 recruits back then from there. So so go back to Nico and I, basically we did 3,600 accounts in 2020. With like a sales squad of like 30 deep. So just not normal numbers for like the number of guys. And that's what I've, just because of the way we work. And so basically from there, we just got to a point where there was a lot of uncertainty with the company we were with. There wasn't good communication. And then Vivint was kind of like just the opposite of what we've ever seen. You know, they were just offering, you know, to make a pay plan that makes sense for us as far as like paying up front. You know, they were offering the way they were setting up customers to me now with their new, like the way they sign people on and how they do the consumer financing makes a lot of sense to me, and it's way better for the company. So I was like, okay, well that's sustainable. Cause like the last thing I want to do is like keep doing this for 10 years and watch that company go away, you know? And obviously with Vivint, like that's not going to happen. So, and then on top of that, the solar offering and like what they're able to do with that now. So there's a lot of things that kind of made that switch over, and it's just been a massive amount of work because it's a completely different sale. Like selling the old way with like free equipment and signing a contract, you just have to get less information. So it's an easier sale. Like with this new thing, like you're a loan officer. So like you're getting their social, and like, so I think learning the new process was, you know, our biggest growing curve or transition part, but it's really definitely the place where we need to be with an organization like our size. That's for sure.
Let me touch on something real quick before we move to that. Like, that was like the whole thing for me. Like, I'm just a judgmental guy usually, and whatever. And, like Casey's posting Sunday planning, and Lee's like, you need to do Sunday planning. And then I get Casey on the podcast, and Casey's like, I'm going to literally do probably 2 more with him, probably 1 more on planning and another one on goal setting. Cause it's just his knowledge on it's pretty spectacular. And I'm like, all right, I'll do this shit, like, whatever. Like, I'm not a weak, like, dude, listen, why have I not been as successful? Not that I've been extremely successful in my life, but why haven't I been as successful as I want to be? Well, let's just take into consideration, maybe it's these couple little things. Okay. So I do them, whatever. I start posting this shit on the internet, and you know how it is, man. Like, kids from other companies start calling you, and, stuff starts to happen, whatever. And, then we get into this like situation where like I'm posting this stuff on the internet, and like, a kid calls me, sees me at the gym, young kid, whatever. And he's like, and I'm not out running around, solar this and solar that, and he just starts asking me about what is this? What's going on? And I told him, and he called, and I'm like, well, what do you expect out of this? And he's like, well, I was like, is it about money? And he's like, no, it ain't about money. He's like, I want more structure in my life, and I want someone to watch. And I want people to kind of be around me to push me to be better. And so when you say that Instagram I get it, I can relate, and I see it, and it's pretty powerful. So it definitely takes that whole mentality out of the way. So then kind of like you go back to Vivint. So how long have you guys been back to Vivint, and kind of like, what's that situation like for you guys now?
Yeah. So we've been, we officially moved over in December. So it's going on 6 months. One thing I'm proud of is for like the regions that have over 1,000 accounts, we have the #1 PRA within the company. I think overall we're production wise, we're pretty much like par on for what we would be. Switching companies, there was a ton of drama. So I definitely don't recommend it. Unless it's a absolute dire need, it's a process, but it's for everyone, finally, like the hardest part of being a leader is sharing your vision. And most leaders are able to see things sooner than other people. And some people might think they're crazy for that. And that was kind of like what this switch was I see where the industry is going. When I left Vivint the first time, I was just like you said, I'm like, dude, Vivint's the best in the world. No one's ever going to beat them. Like, it's just not even close. Leadership, product, whatever it is, they just have it better down than anyone else. So, I mean, like, I was never like, oh, Vivint sucks, and like, I'm never going to come back. So I always kind of like left the door open. And really, it was seeing how they set up customers and some of the more opportunity we had, like being in 50 states. Like, there's just a lot of different things. The technicians, like being everywhere, not having to deal with customer service because we had to do that. So everything now is going according to plan. Year over year for April, we're at 183% growth. This month we're tracking for probably like another like 50% growth there. And so we're definitely, on the right track, and we're finally able, like, now that our smart home, like the confidence is up on that, we're able to start adding solar to our offer, which is huge. I closed my first solar account last week.
I was really going to ask about that because I heard you had a certain opinion about solar. So I'm glad that you said, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, dude, I was a little 10 kilowatt system. I sold solar in 2017, I think, or 2016 for Vivint, back when it was like in New Jersey. So it was like a PPA or whatever. And guys were like, the loan was like just starting to come out. But everyone was scared to do it because like it didn't save people money, like, like right off the bat, because like the interest rates were different and everything like that. And so, yeah, I mean, my opinion on solar is basically in my house, like I have a design made in my house, it's a no-brainer for the consumer if it's set up right.
Right.
As long as guys aren't like trying to like gouge them on the prices. I mean, it really is a no-brainer, no-brainer, like crazy no-brainer. So it wasn't really easy sale. Like, to close this person on solar, it wasn't that hard, because I'm not there trying to like, sell them at a super high price. And like, basically one day when they go to sell their house, they don't have equity anymore. Like, I think there's solar is a big deal, and I think, that's why I stay away from it. Plus, I think just being really good at selling alarms, like there's not too many solar guys who out earn what I've made, just because it doesn't matter what you do to get to a certain income level, you're going to be rare, to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why transition everything over there? And you notice most of the big alarm guys that do transition is because they have to. It's not really because they want to, it's because they have to. Whether it's, their company went under, or, they got fired from their other place, so I think solar guys, there's a lot of solar guys who over recruit on how amazing it is. Because I hit them up all the time too on Instagram, like my friends that do solar, and I'm like, bro, like one guy's getting like a Model 3, and I'm like, bro, you're a solar guy. Why the fuck do you have a Model 3? I have a Model X and I sell alarms. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, like, I thought solar guys make a lot of money. You're gonna do a Model.
There he is.
I was like, you gotta step up. So. I mean, that's my thing on solar. But no, I'm really pumped to have solar, and I'm going to be closing solar for my team, as well as sell alarms. So, because I kind of have it set up to where I know how to sell during the day, and I could sell. I probably sold 300 accounts in a year before 5 p.m. Like, I just sell early.
Really?
And yeah. That's been my thing from the beginning, is I know how to get those accounts early. And so after 5 p.m., I actually don't have a lot of motivation to knock, to be honest. So like, it would be cool to hit some solar appointments. And so I think as our team grows confidence on smart home, which they are, because now we have like everything I was seeing is kind of coming into play. Like we're getting paid more, we're selling a better product, and we have less things to deal with. So it allows us to scale better. We'll start adding our little solar sets. And I think we got a really good setup with the way Vivint does it on the solar side of things. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Lee said to me sometimes, back in the Vivint days, you'd like, if some dude would start talking out of turn or something, and you'd be like, how many deals have you sold this month? Shut your fuck up. Or say, you know what I mean? Like, just basically like Pat likes to let people know, like, hey man, you don't get to talk right now.
Yeah.
I just saw it. So that's why I was laughing.
Oh yeah, dude. Social media has given people the platform to talk way too much. And then when that comes into the sales office, when there's other people who like are spending their time that they really don't need to be there, whether it's other salesmen or other leaders. And then all of a sudden this like new guy just started, it's just like telling you how it is. I'm like, I don't know about that, but you get I think social media allows people to talk too much. And if you have 1,000 followers nowadays, like you can be a guru and change the world. And I just think there's a lot of bad information that goes out there. And so I think I keep quiet more than I should. And that's just because I don't know if I just don't have the time or the attention to pay attention to stuff like that. But there's definitely been, I believe that guys because I see it on my team, I just see guys that like they buy into these things that these guys are telling them on social media, and they're good people. Like it could be an outlet, it could be this, but it's like, bro, it doesn't even apply to you. Like the goal setting thing. So one of the talks I had, this is kind of like, it's kind of dark. So I want to kind of bring this up. So how I think it was like a Nick Saban interview where, and the way I've seen it is we're bred to survive. So that happens in finances too. I think most people they work hard enough just to pay their bills.
Yeah.
And, I can attest to that. I can say that's a big reason why I work. I mean, I got a lot of bills, I got a lot of nice things, and it makes it easy for me to work because it's like, oh, cool, I could have all this stuff if I just work. But I think a lot of guys the work ethic part, like how do you figure that out? How do you get someone to work if you're a manager? How do you build your work ethic? Because I feel like, as in hindsight, looking back, like one thing is like I worked a lot when I was a kid. I was 12 years old. I had my first job. And then sports wise, like I always played a ton of sports. Like I'd leave my house when I was a little kid at 9 and I'd get back at 9, like during the springtime, like just because I was playing football or playing baseball. And so work ethic, I think, has perspective, and some people just don't know what hard work is. Like they've never done it. And I think I've grown watching, like being like, oh yeah, this guy's like a kid. He only like if he works 4 hours a day, that's a lot for him. So he's struggling, and I've kind of toned down on the savageness as much because I've started like realizing like, oh, well, I'm kind of unique, and, I need to figure out like how to get someone to their next level, not necessarily what I think is next level. It's really with finances and goal setting and all that stuff. Like, why don't you just I just tell my guys now, I'm like, try to survive. Like, go ahead. Like, listen, your goals aren't motivating you. You can't even work 30 hours.
Right.
You guys are telling me how they want to do this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, that's obviously not helping. Like, your goals aren't helping. So it's like, be real. You can't hit your goals. You're just not there yet.
Yeah.
But what can you do? I bet you could pay your bills.
Right.
I bet you've been doing a pretty good job at that, right?
Right.
Well, go get another bill. Go get something that you want that you didn't think you could ever have. And then go see if you could survive. See if that motivates you to work. And believe it or not, it does, dude. Like, living in the house I live in, I never saved to bought a house. Like, I didn't save up. I was just like, oh yeah, I could do that. And I couldn't. I had to get some credit here and there and figure it out. And so whatever, did that. Had 2 mortgages that were just ridiculous. Like, I've put myself against the wall, but I've had everything I've ever wanted for now, and it's just because I'm not sitting there writing down my goals and saying you know, like, here's what I want. And like, that doesn't, it's just like, for most of it, like being real, it's just cause like I have to survive. Like I have to pay my bills. Like, and I think if a lot of guys, I think they get caught up on these gurus telling them to goal set and do this and do that. And it does work and it can work, and it takes time for it to work. I think it's a skill set to build, but if it's not working, change it. Just go survive. Like, why don't you have the car you want, bro? You knock fucking doors. Are you kidding me? Like, that's what I said. I'm like, you knock the doors. Here's what's crazy. I had a meeting, 20 guys or so. I was like, hey, who's been working 30 hours a week? Stand up. No one stands up. And then the next question I asked is like, who's at least made $3,000 in a week? Everyone stands up. And I'm like, I'm just like, well, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, you have this opportunity to make $100,000, whether it's $100,000, $150,000, whatever it is. But you're choosing just to make less because you don't need to, you know, like you're still a kid. Like, you don't need to, you know, pay your, like, go. I don't think you're going to do anything until you start pushing your survival instincts. You know, it's almost like surviving, like finances is a different way to survive. And if you've never done it, like if you've never been like back against like I've been poor as shit. Like that's how I grew up. So it's like, I've watched my mom write checks that were going to bounce for groceries. And I knew that. And like, we would talk about that when I was a kid. And it's like, so I've had survival in my life. So that way, when it comes to finances, if I have to survive, I know I'm going to. And I think it's been a big reason why, like, I've grown my income so much. Like, it's just because, like, hey, like I know what surviving's like, and some people haven't even touched that yet, and you won't until you put yourself in a situation where you need to.
There's so much out of that for me, dude. Wow, I got to think about that for a second. Yeah, I have a girlfriend who likes nice shit, dude, and expensive shit, and like, you know, and people will say like, oh, you know, like you can't pay that much for this or that much for that, and I go, I don't know, dude. It helps me to survive, and you just gave me the words to like what, like I have to make a certain amount of money a month to not even just stay afloat, but more money than people make in a year, so that I can literally just be comfortable, you know, and like. And there was 2 months where I didn't hit even half of the goal. And at first it was like, I got money in the bank. I got stocks. I got crypto. I got blah, blah, blah. And then the second month, Lee called me at the end of the second month. Hey, bro, you suck. You know, like you suck. And I love you. And I love you through, but you're literally the worst closer I have at the company right now. And I'm the kind of guy where like I can, you know, it's a character defect. I can lie to myself and lie to myself and lie to myself. But it's why I need people like you and Lee and even my girlfriend in my life to go and like knock on my head. And that's what I'm grateful for. Cause I'll wake up to that shit, bro. Like I'll wake up to that shit. And like, it might not be the last wake up call I ever need, but it was one of the most important wake up calls even recently because yeah, dude, you're right. I had the same card, you know, Earl Nightingale wrote about it in the 1930s about like, you know, you have two ways of what you can do. You can either save up for what you want or you can buy what you want and change your income and your lifestyle. Right. So like if you want a more abundance, you can just go get more shit. You don't have to save it up. Right. And I think that's a thing that's missed even in today's society, right, with the gurus or whatever. So I agree with that. And then it's like, for me, you know, it's great. You're saying all this shit. And I'm fortunate to talk to you now because I'm on the other side of it at the moment. It's just like, you know, my girl, like right now is waiting at Wind for me to come meet her at the Gucci store, you know, like, and she got there plenty early, you know what I'm saying? Because she wanted her shit. And she's texting me right now while we're talking saying like, hey, no rush, but I'll be waiting at this cafe, which is $100 a person to eat for brunch. And I don't mean to say that like lavishly, like I'm so this or that. It's just, that is what motivates me most of the time is that like, I want to provide for her and myself and our future family of like, I need this type of lifestyle, which means like, bro, you know what it means at the end of the day? Knock maybe 1 or 2 more hours, you know? Maybe instead of knocking 12 to 6, you knock 11 to 7, or you knock 10 to 8, or whatever it ends up being. Because again, like it's just, you know, you said so much good shit there, dude. And the fortunate fun thing for me is I get to edit this shit and listen to it again. But you know, like it's true. Everything you're saying, I'm living it right now, you know, and it's not about like, and Lee said it to me before too. And all these guys said it before. It's like, you can have the cards in your car, you can write it down during the day, but practical experience shows that nothing will improve your goals if you don't go to work, bro. You know, and I agree 100% because I can write my goal. Yeah, it's just as simple as like, if I just dedicate, and it's funny because we're recruiting these people, and I'll bring them in, and Lee and I will talk to them, and I'm learning a lot more about recruiting and how to recruit, and I'm way fortunate for that I have a guy like Lee to show me, and you know, he's learned from you and all these other legends, and so it's just a trickle down effect for me. Like, I get to come in when everyone's at their top of their game, and I have a conversation with these guys. It's like, look, man, you might be good looking, you might be able to talk. Give it a year. Okay, this isn't a 1 month thing. This isn't a 90. Just give it 1 year. If you can even fathom the idea of doing it for 5 to get really to where you need to be, but just give it a year. Because if you give it a year, you will come outside of it. Listen, whether you stay in the door knocking industry or not, what you're going to learn from this environment is going to change you for the rest of your entire life. If you just dedicate 1 year, that's your goal. Your goal is, I won't quit for a year. Because dude, Bobby was one of my favorite people to talk to, because he literally was like crying on a curb on the side of the road, and he called his mother, and he said, "Mom, can you come pick me up?" And his mom, his mom's a savage, goes, yeah, but then you're a quitter, and you're not allowed to be a quitter around here, is basically what she told him, you know?
Yeah.
And like that to me is like, you know?
No, I think one of the things I'm definitely have high conviction on is, if you're in door-to-door sales, especially like smart home or solar, but either way, I think in door-to-door sales in general, like, if that is your way of making money, the only reason why you don't have everything that you want in your life is because you're scared to work. Because you're terrified to go buy that car you want, or to go ask this girl on your date. Because what that means is, especially if you don't have it saved up and you have to get a loan, is you are committing to work. Like, and that, like, I know, because I was like that before. Before, when I was training for the Olympics, like, I was so terrified to have anything, and like this, even have a car, because I was so scared to work, because I knew if I worked, I wouldn't be able to hit my Olympic goal. And now it's just like the exact opposite. Like, I think we have a better opportunity than 99% of people. And it really is like, people are scared to work. That's why they don't have what they want in their lives. Like, they are, like, for whatever reason, like, I'm talking about guys that are like really good. Like, I've had guys that make $150,000 a year their first year, you know, but like, they want to do more and get more. But then it's like, they won't push themselves to that next level. Because it's really rare to see people go from like 100 to 250, then to 500, and then to 750, or then, you know, close to that million mark. Like, that 250 to 500 mark is a big, like, a lot of people fall off in our industry. Like, and most of it is, they're just scared to work, or they just stop working, or they're satisfied, or whatever it is. That's the difference there, is from what I've seen. Like, when I made that jump, it was really just like, work ethic went crazy. But again, also my lifestyle went crazy. You know, I was like, hey, I met this girl. I want to be with her. She lives in Brazil though. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do that? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. But then, like, I was like, no, I can figure it out. So I was like, well, I'll just work a lot, and then I'll go there, and I'll work a lot, and I'll go there. And then what ended up happening, when I thought about it, I was like, well, hey, I stopped going out on the weekends, you know, like, whether it's like going out, like, I wasn't like a big clubber too much, but I would go out. Like, I'm saving myself at least $1,500 a weekend by not going out.
No doubt.
Well, that affords trips to Brazil. And then just credit card points, like, somehow, some way, it was all these like little things, because of that like decision of like, hey, I'm going to try to see how far I can take this. But really, it's simple. Like, you waste so much life on the weekends, like 2 days a week, you know, 50 weeks a year, it's 100 days. Like, I spend 100 days away. I spend 100 days traveling because I don't fuck around on the weekends. Like, that's what I've been able to do. And I think it's really cool to say that, because I never been that way. I sold for 102 weeks in a row at Skyline. I had 102 weeks. I didn't take a vacation for a very long time. So, and it's that extreme work ethic that allows me to like see, like, it's allowed me to get that freedom. I think if most guys would at least try it, I say the same thing. Like one of the first things I say to someone that starts is, hey, what if for the first 90 days, this is my old football coach. My football coach used to tell us this on Wednesdays. We had night practice. He'd be like, hey, if you guys had to stay out here at midnight, and you guys were going to win on Friday, would you do it? Everyone would say yes. And the same thing I tell guys when they first start, I'm like, hey, for the next 90 days, if all you had to do was knock your last door at 9 p.m., 6 days a week, 9 p.m. for 90 days, and then you never have to worry about money anymore, would you do it? Everyone says yes. I haven't had a single guy do it though. But it's it's simple, but it's hard to execute. Like, if that just one idea, like, hey, for the next 90 days this summer, guys, because summer's about to start for a lot of the college kids getting out or whatever the situation is. I don't know how it is with Corona. It's like, look, for the next 90 days, all you had to do was work till 9 p.m. You never have to worry about money anymore. Would you do it? Well, that's what door to door does. Like, you do it for that long, you really got to figure it out.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. Mike, I listen to a podcast. I think the guy's name is Mike Connolly. I think he sells like 3 megawatts a year of solar. The guy's just an animal. And he said, he'll literally, like, let's just say if he has an appointment, wraps up at 8, he'll knock until he gets a no, kind of similar to the way you're explaining it. And I've always loved that. He's like, I'll literally drive up to a woman walking down the street that's walking her dog and be like, hey, you don't want solar, do you? Like, hey, you're not interested in what I have to sell, right? Just say it in such a terrible way just for her to go, yeah, thank you, I'm not. And then I can go home and then I'm like, oh, I feel, because like how many times, I'm just really glad I went through all the, like just all that shit to get to this point. And, we've gone a long time, dude. I'm pumped on this one, man. I really appreciate it. There's a couple more things I still want to talk about. And that's kind of I did a little Instagram stalking on you, try to get an idea of the kind of guy you are, and talk to Lee and a couple other guys about you. And, Bobby mentioned you about getting the band back together. And like we talked about the athletic stuff, so Joe Dispenza, you have him on your page. I don't know if it says like stay current or whatever it says. Like, can we just touch on Dr. Joe Dispenza, kind of like what he is to you and kind of what that means for you?
Yeah, so Joe Dispenza, again, kind of came into my life at a time of uncertainty. And basically in 2000, before I had like my biggest year in 2018, my wife, she at the time said she wanted to get a divorce. And, we've been doing therapy, we've been doing all this stuff, and it was like a huge blow. It was just, getting divorced sucks. So I actually found his book during this time, and it was just one of the most powerful experiences getting into what he practiced and what he preaches, just about how being in that present moment just allows you to align with like the quantum field and allows you to kind of create anything you want, and you can really just create whatever life you want, and everything that you have starts from within. And I've just, I've always tried to figure out as a manager, like, dude, that's door to door. Just, it puts you in these situations where like, you need to figure out how to be like just next level. And like, that was with me. I'm like, man, how do I get my guys? Or like, why am I so different? Or like, what do I need to look for? And, anything I learned, I take into work.
Right.
And, like, a big thing with door to door and like what Joe Dispenza's teaching, I think, is, when he talks about everything comes within and you create your own, you really create your own life, you create your own destiny. And it's not your environment that creates you. Like, those are the big things. So it isn't, and it makes sense. Like, you look at like these really great people like LeBron James, who has like no father, like grows up in poverty. Like, how did he change? His environment is the worst you can be raised in statistically, right? Like, but how did he create all this stuff? Well, that was from within. He created his environment. He got himself to be a basketball player and do all these things. And like my story is like mom's bipolar, dad's alcoholic, no one's around. Statistically, I'm supposed to be a psychopath. Like I'm supposed to end up in jail and be a drug addict probably. That's what most people in those environments do, because my mom ended up being a drug addict as well. But it's like, no, like my environment was so shitty, I could never look at it. And I had to go within myself and figure out how to do these, figure out how to get out of it. And, with Joe Dispenza, that's what he really the biggest thing I take away from him is going within yourself. Like when things are going wrong. So like with my wife and like not wanting to be with me and whatever the situation was, it was very like, okay, that was horrible. Like, let me go within myself. Let me see what I can change. And ultimately, it didn't work out and I got divorced. And it has been, whether it's that or Joe Dispenza or just all these different, it's hard to really pin it down, but my life has just never been the same since picking up that book and then attending one of his retreats. And so his retreats are these 7-day meditation retreats where you're meditating up to 8 to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
And he's guiding you through and teaching you all about the quantum field and teaching you everything that you need to like understand meditation. Because I never understood it. I knew a lot of people did it, and I never meditated before I went to this retreat. I just listened to his book. And so here I am, a guy who's like ADD and like fucking, I can't keep my mind straight and I can't meditate. Like I went to meditate before and I just couldn't do it. And I'm here forcing myself. And it's like being an athlete always helps, because like he's my coach and I'm like, he's coaching me through this meditation. And so, man, I came out of that retreat just like, you get it, like learning how to like heal yourself from trauma, from the past. And like on top of that, like your heart, you just feel so different. And the day, like most of the stuff, obviously, because it was like the year of turmoil through a divorce. So like a lot of the things were like finding my next partner, finding my next spouse and starting a family. And, I went to Brazil right after that retreat, and I found my fiance, like right after that. Like she was I attracted that to me. Like that's what I did. Like I attracted this person to this opportunity to just come in front of me.
Wow.
And it's completely random. She just happens to live in the same town my dad does. I don't know Portuguese. I end up learning Portuguese within 3 months, and like and it's happened over and over again with us. Just different things, different opportunities come into place when you believe that you already have them. Like that's another big thing too. So, and you can rewire your mind. So a couple other things I brought from that was, why doubt that you can or can't do something? Like why have any doubt in your mind when it's already happened and you've already had it in one universe or one realm or one reality? It's already happened. Everything you've ever wanted has already happened, and you're living in that, you're living it out, and it's going to go this way or that way, just depending on what energy that you bring to that. And I mean, I think it gives me a lot of confidence moving forward when I do have like a big goal or a big, just something I feel like in normal situations, like I used to doubt myself on. Now I know the truth that it's already happened, and it just allows me to live in a different way, allows me to be more abundant, allows me to be grateful for that situation because that's already happened before. And gratitude's like the ultimate feeling of receivership. And so all these things, like Joe Dispenza, like I always tell people, go into his book, go into his teaching. Like he does it. I can't explain it the way he does. It's heavy shit. Like it's not something like you're like, oh, like you can like just read like and not pay attention to. Like you really got to like pay attention, and if you do, you'll pick up a lot of good things. And I think in door to door, like one of the things I've always thought, because like you hear like Mark Cuban did door to door, and the guy that did Paul Mitchell, and all these people come from door to door. Well, what is that? Is it really allows you to practice being present, and being present is like one of the hardest things to do. Wow. Because the worst door-to-door salesmen are the people that bring the past doors to the first door. Like those guys suck. and you watch him knock, and it's like one guy I was knocking with this week, like I'm like it's like he's knocking like his tonality is like this, like where he's like someone's about to slam the door in his face, like he's squinting his eyes, and I could feel his energy, like he's just waiting for that door slam because he's not present. And here's someone that come and I watch him lose the sale, and I'm like, dude, what the? I was like, I didn't say this to him, but I was just like, in my head, I'm like, bro, this guy comes out of his house. He's like, how are you guys? Like, he's like one of these very nice people. Yeah. And here you are being not present, thinking that this guy's just going to slam the door in your face or yell at you or something. Yeah. And like, that's what I think door to door, why some guys really like their lives change when they go to door. Like, I think it's a very simple principle it teaches you to be present, because like you have to be, like you really do. And you really have to like be with that customer, that exact customer at that moment in order to be a really great salesperson, versus like prejudging, or thinking that because this guy said no this way, it's going to be the same as the last guy that said no, or trying to, even if you're really good, like you're trying to use the same objection handling that you do, but this person's different. It's not like the last person where it worked. Like this person's a little smarter. Someone already stopped by. He kind of already knows the deal already. Like be present, qualify this person, and figure out who you're actually talking to. And that door to door just allows you to, you could practice being present. And that's what meditation is. Meditation is basically practicing being present in this present moment, clearing your mind, connecting to the field. Like, so basically as you're doing door to door, you're pretty much like you're learning how to be present, which is like meditating. It's very Joe Spence has done a lot. Yeah, I've definitely taken a lot from him, and definitely applied it to the doors, and seen things that he teaches you, and kind of see how great door-to-door guys are versus bad ones, and like how little things that he says really applies to the doors.
Yeah, this is the dopest part for me, is I get to like literally go to Amazon while you're talking and find books and go look at, and just like get it ordered and shit. And, it's that's the coolest part for me. And I hope even the people that listen, as we get, that's why this podcast, I think, is so successful, and it's going to be so successful, is it's just a community of people that want to be better and do better and push themselves past the limits of what they ever thought possible. And this is, I'm like constantly getting this books to read, and, there's nothing better to do for me in the car driving to an appointment. I mean, unless I need to get pumped up or something with some music. If I'm already amped leaving the gym, like, I'm throwing an audiobook on, and I'm losing myself in the book, which is in turn going to give me something to remind me at the door. And it's just constantly, I'm super grateful for all that stuff. And especially, now I had never even heard of the guy. So, I appreciate you sharing that. And, I've got a buddy he's extremely successful in life, and he does a Vipassana meditation every year for 11 days. And, he's been trying to get me to do it. He's just super passive about it, but, I was like, dude, I mean, I do my little tidbit in the morning and at night and stuff, but like, bro, you're like, what? You do what? What are you going to do, dog? Like, what? Before I hear about guys like you and other people I respect, it's like, what? Just get yourself out of the equation, man, because it might be the next step for your awakening for you. And that's like, like what you just said with the doors, like, I got some guys on my team and around me that are, it's like, I'm hoping that they can get past that little bit of thing of not bringing, like my favorite thing, there's a dude, I haven't talked to him or met him yet, but that no soliciting on Instagram, and he has all those funny memes and gifs, and just, like, it's like, I love a no soliciting sign. Like, did you just see that? It's like, yeah, but man, I'm a little bit different. Then your door gets slammed in your face. You're like, cool. Well, I tried, rather than me walking up to a door that says, don't knock it, I hate you, with a sign they printed out that's 8 feet long, that's in front of the door. And it's like, dude, there's 2 cars in the driveway, and like, they look young, and like, I'm hitting the door, I'm prospecting it, and I'm, yeah, so I can relate to that. And kind of like, to kind of wrap it up a little bit, where do you kind of see yourself, man? Like the future for you. I know you got, your beautiful fiance in Brazil, but, kind of like work-wise, life-wise, like kind of where do you see yourself in the next like 5 or 10 years? Like where do you think you're going from here?
Yeah, if things go to plan, you know, I made a decision a long time ago, for whatever reason. And honestly, when I do more therapy, I think it's probably just to get my dad's attention. But whatever reason it is, I want to be the best to ever do anything, no matter what I'm doing. Like in weightlifting, I was chasing records. When I played football, like I idolized Emmett Smith because he had the all-time record. I wasn't a running back, but I really I wanted to be.
Right.
And yeah, I think with Vivint, you know, I've always been like a very loyal career guy. Like even leaving, it was so against me. Like everyone thought it was crazy. But you know, I plan on staying here. I think one of the unique parts that Vivint's changed is just their equity structure. Now that it's like in an app and it's publicly traded, to me, I've never been someone that's I could probably figure out crypto if I had the time, or
Right.
figure out real estate if I have the time. But it's like, I'm so damn good at what I do. Why don't I just keep doing it and find a platform that allows me to build my wealth within it? And I think for me, I tell guys, I'm like, dude, you spend 10 years at Vivint and you don't have $1 million in equity. You did something wrong, because you don't even have to do that much. You can be average and do that. To be honest, the way it's set up now.
Yeah.
And I think and so for me, I want to spend the next 10 years, I want to get to the point where, you know, it's subjective, obviously, but I want to figure out what that number is. I want to be one of the greatest to ever do it, in the industry, in the smart home space, especially. So, or my organization more, first and foremost. So I think Neil Rogers does 40,000 accounts or something like that a year, his organization. So he's my target. That's where I want to get to. And he's been doing it for, I think, 20 years. I've been doing it. I've been doing it for 5, but really my team with Nico, we're 2.5 years old. So that's nothing. It's peanuts. We're just getting started. And I think that's the only thing that motivates me is I want to be the best to ever do something, period. Record holder, GOAT, the way Casey Bond, Mendes went out, boom. If I'm not going out with them, then I went short, you know, that's how I feel. And it's not because I think I'm as good as them or as smart as them. Definitely probably not either one of those things. It's just the only thing that motivates me.
Right.
That's what that's it. That's it. Nothing else motivates me. So that's what drives me to work every day. That's what makes it easy for me to work every day. And yeah, I'm all in. I like what I do. I love the platform I'm in. You know, there's always, when you're working for someone else, there's always going to be shit you don't agree with and pros and cons of everything. But I think now that I'm older, I've definitely gotten accustomed to those types of changes and the bureaucracies a little bit. So I'm prepared for those things when they do come, because they will, because the only constant change in any business, the only constant in business is change. So I think we're prepared really well for that stuff. So that's kind of my future. That's my ultimate goal, is just to be known as one of the greats to ever do it, or the greatest to ever do it, if I can get that far.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that other than, you know, I had Casey on, and Lee said it a bunch of times. It's just burn your ships, bro. You know, just burn your ships and just grind. And so that's all I get out from that, dude. Yeah, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, man. I appreciate you, bro. I've been super pumped. I was actually a little bit nervous last night before getting you on. I wanted to make sure it was all good and shit. You know? So I had been thinking about doing this with you for a long time, and Lee made it happen. I'm super grateful for your time, dude. And you know, I'll probably ask you on again here in a few months. You know, kind of see where we're at, see if I come up with another topic that Buff Pat can talk about, man. But I'm honored to talk to you, brother, and I really appreciate your time, man. Thanks a lot.